going to be using today for our crown prep. We're going to start with our bite registration material, our temporary material, light body impression, our heavy body impression material, our triple tray. We have our mouth mirror, explorer, cotton pliers, plastic instrument, also a cord packer. We have our mixing spatula, our mouth prop, our topical, our anesthetic syringe, our slow speed handpiece, high speed handpiece. We have our diamond burrs and our regular burrs. Here's our timer, our cord that we soak in Hemident, our 2x2s, our IRM temporary cement, our mixing pad, shade guide, our lab slip, and our baggies that we send the impression into. We have our high-speed evacuator suction tip and our slow-speed suction tip.
In today's clinical procedure, we will be preparing tooth number 14 for porcelain fused to metal crown. The first step is to get a preliminary impression of the tooth using bite registration material. This impression will be set aside and later used to fabricate a provisional crown.
So in order to get that decay out of there, I have to remove this entire amalgam alloy, and then we're going to have to build it up with a new build-up material. After we build it up with a new build-up material, we're going to decrease the size of the tooth circumferentially and occlusally, and take the impression of the tooth after it's been prepared. That impression then goes to the lab, and they fabricate the porcelain fused to metal crown for Randy. Okay? And after that comes back to us, then we'll cement the crown back onto that tooth. Okay, so the first step is for me to get this area numb. I'm placing the topical anesthetic into the vestibule here. Let that sit for about 20 seconds. I'm going to be giving his anesthetic here. This would be called a posterior superior alveolar infiltration injection. It's just buccally to the actual tooth that we're working on here. I'm using a 4% Septicane, 1 to 100,000 epinephrine. Okay, that should do it for the anesthetic. And Darla's just going to place that on here, and I'm going to scoop that up so nobody risks getting stuck with the needle. And take out his bite block here. And we'll just give Randy a few minutes to get nice and numb there. So the first step in this process is to remove the old amalgam filling. And the surfaces on this amalgam filling go all over the place. It's a MOBDL. So I made sure that Randy had his safety glasses on because we're going to be cutting through the amalgam. There's going to be pieces of alloy flying through the air. So
You'll notice that the suction tip position is buckled to tooth number 14, with the bevel position parallel to the tooth. The assistant is also retracting the patient's cheek simultaneously, using the air-water syringe.
You also leave me enough room so that I can see the tooth with my mirror.
Each time the handpiece is removed from the patient's mouth, the assistant suctions out any liquid and rinses and dries the tooth being prepared. This gives the doctor a clear operating field. You'll notice that the assistant has placed the high evacuation suction tip so that she can simultaneously retract the lip and suction the water from the high-speed handpiece. The other hand is controlling the air-water syringe, which is keeping the doctor's mirror dry and free from debris. Okay, so I was able to remove the alloy filling and the decay under the distal portion of the filling. So the next step in the process is to build the tooth back up. In order to do that, since we've removed interproximal tooth structure, I'm going to have to place a matrix band around the entire tooth. So Darla's going to hand me the matrix band. Place the matrix band around the tooth. And after it's touching the gingiva all the way around, I tighten it with a tightener. Okay, now that it's nice and tight, we begin the build-up process. Now we're going to build the tooth up with a composite filling. And the first step when you're doing a composite filling is you need to prime the tooth with a primer. And the primer needs to be dried. Next is the bonding solution. Now the bond is actually what sticks the composite to the tooth. That also needs to be dried and then light cured for 10 seconds. As this is curing, Darla hands me the flowable composite, which is the first portion of the base material that we're going to place on this tooth. Okay, now Darla's going to cure this portion. This is a 20-second cure. I'm going to follow with packable composite, which goes right on top of the flowable composite. I use my condenser to condense the material solid onto the tooth. And Darla takes away any extra material I have with her gauze. When that portion is condensed, Darla hits it with the light again. And then I cut the matrix band off
with this instrument. And once the matrix band is off, Darla cures it one more time to get any areas that were covered by the matrix band that are uncured. Stick your tongue straight out of your ear. Okay, so now the tooth is built up into the areas where the decay was removed and where the previous filling was located. Now I'm going to prepare the tooth for the crown. The first step is to adjust and decrease the occlusal height of the tooth. Also, the next step is to circumferentially decrease the size of the tooth all the way around. You have to remove enough tooth structure so that you can build and replace that tooth structure with the metal and porcelain, or the porcelain fused to metal crown. You'll notice that every time I pull out of the mouth, Darla keeps the area clean. She rinses and dries the tooth as many times as she needs to keep the operating field clean. Okay?